Welcome back to the North America SEC Qualifiers Week 2. And if you hadn't had a chance to get in and check out the Enchanted Battle Pass, make sure you do that right now. Great skins, Heimdallr, Fenrir, the Morgan, Ares. Some awesome stuff in that Battle Pass. So make sure you jump in and maximize your time to get all of those rewards. Gormizer still with me to break down game number 1 of semifinal number 2. This one was high kill right from the get-go, and it did not stop towards the end.
Houdinis, I mean, you knew the game was going to be aggressive when they started off literally just chasing Hebo around the jungle, where they were just like, you're not alone here. It wasn't looking for the kill. They weren't looking for anything like that. They just wanted to waste his time, maybe steal some farm in the process, try to steal buffs, but admittedly force him to use all of the potions. And that was actually one of the things that Mifflin had pointed out really early, was just SweetPatato didn't get off where he needed to. He couldn't get back in time to get boots. He had to spend a lot more time focusing on everything. And, well, you can see the slashlights themselves. Him, as well as YarBadKid, were both 1-11 at the end of the game.
Yeah, it's tough.
The train never left a station for him.
And I think it's hard to really emphasize one specific person on the Houdinis. You have a few members of DANSSLAND all in the double-digit death category, and as such, you have a few members on the Houdinis, top, or solo rather, jungle, mid, all doing their work here for the Houdinis.
Well, a lot of it, like, I think SpreeeN kind of helped control the early game that transitioned eventually into that late game solo lane ganks, I guess realistically causing more trouble. Like, they ended, what, I think 10-1, 11-1 towards the end there for the solo laner. And so being able to focus so much on this side, pretty much from the get-go, again, there were so many fights in the first, like, 5 to 10 minutes that were on the right-hand side of the map, near the short lane, before they even cared about the rest of the map. It took them a while to start looking at objectives, but once Houdinis were looking there, they were already so far ahead by 2 levels in pretty much every category that they didn't have much that they were putting at risk.
Well, I think there's a point, I think, when you're sad for Snaddy, but then you realize what happened in or in the quarterfinal, rather, what he was able to do on the Camisats. We've called back to that a few times today. There was a point where all of the ganks, SpreeeN on that Pele, was just sitting on Snaddy over and over and over again, getting that King Arthur ahead, and it paid off in the long run.
We've seen essentially him in 2 positions, right? Once where, as Camisats got so far ahead, was able to do literally everything for his team, and now once where he was a non-factor, couldn't get anything done. And it just kind of built on itself, right? This was a lead that they had it about 5 minutes in, again, when they're 6 kills up, and you have a 3-0 and 3 Pele, a 2-0 and 2 Merlin. But then after a while, you've got such a heavy gold lead that you've got extra ward coverage, you've got all the level advantages, you've got item advantages. They just couldn't see as much, couldn't fight as well as the Houdinis could towards the end. So DANSSLAND were just perpetually behind. Mifflin had called it out earlier. It said, you know, there's a certain point, especially if you're first-blooded or down 2 kills as Hebo, which had happened early on, just fall back and farm for late game. And they never did it. They just wanted to fight. If they had maybe waited that out and just sat back and farmed instead of fight, maybe it's a different game. But unfortunately, they just kind of went as hard as they could the entire time.
And I think even despite all that, the fact that Snaddy at the end of the game was still kind of a kernel of hope for DANSSLAND is a testament to how good of a player he is. P's and B's for game number 2 on your screen now. And remember, these are best of 3s, so DANSSLAND, they got to win 2 straight. Houdini's just 1 game away from moving on to the finals for the Week 2 NA qualifiers. Thorband out this time around. Yamoja, same old story for her. Heimdallr, this time though, they felt like there was enough of a presence from Nesfor in game 1. Let's take it off the table.
What I'm curious about is whether or not it's going to be just the Heimdallr, right? And the answer is yes. There was just so much that was working for them in that game if you're the Houdinis that you have to wonder, is like, man, is Pele bannable now? Like, do we want to get rid of her? Like, where do we want to go with this?
All 5 bans are just the comp from last game.
Just get them out of here. Do whatever you can. But I like the adaptation just enough. It's so much to say, like, hey, you know what? This wasn't our immediate problem. Let's ban one of the big problems. Let's grab the other one and see where the flow takes us.
Well, Bastet has been a big problem for a lot of people, whether it's in ranked or in the qualifiers. The Morgan, she's been banned out so much, and we're going to get one of the first few looks at her this time around.
Bastet just does a lot of damage.
She does, doesn't
There
she?
you go. Take it, ship it. That's all you need to know about her. She does a lot of damage. Her ult makes her damage do even more damage, so she's going to hit you hard. And so ganks on Merlin, ganks on Houyi, even ganks into the solo lane where you typically have someone who's tankier are going to feel painful.
Sure,
hurtful.
they're
going to affect you to your core
Right.
if you're one of the players. Whereas Morgan, like, is more than likely, in my mind, going to the duo lane. Like, things like that, having 2 Bastets now available to you. Imagine that at level 5, you just all of a sudden have 2 pounces landing on you with both of their ults active. You're dead. You're just erased.
Yeah, Bastet and the Morgan kind of together are the pimp my ride of Smite gods, right? I heard you like damage, so I put damage on your damage, and that's what you got for the Houdinis right now. Terra, Hachiman rounding out the first 4 picks for them. Erlang Shen, though, one of his first few looks at him, and Tier is going to round out DANSSLAND's comp.
I love Erlang. I actually love him in this comp as well because it looks more centered around the jungle.
Sure.
Pin to be able to set up kills, a good taunt on his ultimate. He has a lot of things in his kit that allow, specifically Merlin in my mind, to set up way more kills, get that mid lane ahead, and try to stop what happened last game, which was just everyone starting to fall behind. He can focus a little bit more on the mid lane or even into the solo, help get this tier ahead, and it opens up a lot more avenues for DANSSLAND.
And I like them going towards this Hades. I think Hades is in a good spot right now.
He's good. Like, aggro is the one who I think can hammer it home the best, but he's got good sustain, he does good damage, good control with a nice teamfight ultimate. Like, he has a lot going for him. The only issue with him is the fact that he has to put himself in danger to get a lot of that done. But if you do it right and you have the right sustain in the right areas, and, well, now you have a Terra on your team, you can set it up pretty well.
Well, I think it's obvious we like the Houdinis composition. They just need one more to move on to the finals. John Finch, it's all yours.
Thank you, Delson. Gormizer as well, as we are indeed moving into game number 2 between DANSSLAND and Houdinis. It looks like it's going to start with action. SweetPatato, after what happened last game, looking for a bit of revenge. They get the beads forced out from Nesfor on this Hachiman very early on this game. That's a good use of that early pressure already.
Yeah, I want to touch on the comps right now. If we look over at DANSSLAND, they've got a little bit more early game focus in the Erlang Shen, in the Houyi, in the Jing Shen. However, I think Dave put it so perfectly. Beads lost on SpreeeN so quickly, but Dave said it on the desk. Morgan Bastet is the pimp my ride of Smite. Put that on my gravestone. That's damage on damage. It's so powerful. Bastet's rework making her such a potent mid to late game jungler now.
Well, I know you're a huge fan of this Bastet post rework, right? That you're one of the strong proponents of how strong she is right now. So we'll certainly get to see in the hands of SpreeeN, who had a great game on the Pele last time. This is DANSSLAND, the Order team, coming up to try and invade the purple from Houdinis. I think we saw this happen last game as well, so clearly not looking to send YarBadKid off on a mission to harass the jungler, instead trying to see if they can, with their superior pressure, kind of bully around purple.
But they did kind of pressure out the jungler. That's SpreeeN over there not getting the purple buff. It's a weird start.
Oh, you're right.
And it's so strange for me. Normally we'd see them start at the speed buff, but I think they realized that they would have lost the pressure in that lane to the Houyi and the Jing Shen. So you're trying to confirm that, make sure you get that red and purple buff, but even then it wasn't enough.
Might be new to Casa, but know a couple things about Smite. Good work, Myth.
Yeah, you know.
Well, and that's something that we've seen, right? Sometimes these junglers do start away from the speed buff if they're worried about the invades, and supports just follow them wherever that they go. It doesn't matter if it's speed buff or not, they're trying to harass you. As SweetPatato is level 2, so this could be a favorable fight. Finds the pin, forces out the defensive shell from Shiaaaaa early on, but there won't be enough. SpreeeN falls for first blood. They do get a little bit of help coming over in the form of NanoBruv as well. DANSSLAND already on the board.
That is so much better start than we saw last game. DANSSLAND's going to get off on the right foot, and they won't have, really put themselves at that deficit before the game even started. We're going to look at a much more competitive match.
Yeah, and I don't want you guys to think that game 1 means that DANSSLAND are a bad team. They're absolutely not. I think it's just like we said towards the end of that game, that SweetPatato just kind of got sat on through the early game and never got to get that Habwa online. Clearly, he was not going to let that happen. Picked the Erlang Shen and started running it down, and it's worked for them so far.
And that's what I would have liked to see. We saw Doug hover over the Talons right there, the Talon Trinket, if you would. 60 magical power on the Hades as well as 100 mana. That's so much power. Normally we see this start on gods like Anubis. We're going to look out to pressure early, but Hades already putting it to strong use as he's proxying between the tier 1 and 2.
Hades can be kind of hard to deal with over in the solo lane, can't he? I mean, how does Hades like to play over there? Is he a lane bully? He's looking to rotate often. What is that what you want in your Hades solo?
I think you're trying to bait me into being a Hades apologist, not unlike aggro. But I will say, Hades has one of the most potent abilities in the fear.
Yeah.
That fear is so good. A 2-second fear, it's only good, right? But on the other hand, he's got a jump and 3. They're all point-blank abilities. He's going to have such a hard time getting that damage off, as well as the fact that he's stationary during his ult, and it doesn't deal as much damage as, say, an Anubis ult. And as we see here, Tyr, get him a little bit of a bully, but that's Snaddy. You know, that's just Snaddy's MO.
That is the way that we've seen Snaddy play all day long. Hades not going to be very tanky with the Talon Trinket start. He's going to get that effective tankiness in quotes from healing, but he's in trouble. I don't think he realized SweetPatato is on the way in. He still has the death from below. He still has that leap available if he needs it, but pinned against the wall. It's not an option. Looks for the heal instead. Finally gets over, but a perfect pin from SweetPatato, and Heeed takes his first death.
Takes his first death, loses his blue buff. That's not what you want on Hades. He made him finish the back cross, but Shiaaaaa in trouble.
That's a sick ricochet there from Renjaru. Catches him mid-dash. Does still have the dive bomb available, though, so he's on retreat path. But in comes Bayroneri, trying to see if he can catch up and find the shots he can. First kill for Houdinis now on the board as they put the Houyi down.
And you don't want that kill landing on the Morgan. She's so potent, being able to use that stealth. She's kind of like Loki magic, right? Just she's gonna one-shot you out of stealth, but SweetPatato's not willing to stop now.
Yeah, kind of like Loki. If Loki could turn into another god with a whole new set of abilities. Bayroneri, hard to imagine a world where he escapes here. That is it for the Morgan for now. A quick 8-second death timer for him. He'll be right back ready to go. But this pace has been fast, hasn't it? It has been a frantic pace throughout the early game so far, and the beneficiaries, I should say, are DANSSLAND. They've got SweetPatato 3-0. They're up 1,500 experience.
It's a completely different DANSSLAND from last game. It seems like SweetPatato's a lot more comfortable playing on these aggressive early game gods. I don't imagine that we see him play any more Hebo this season.
No, I think that this is kind of going to be the adjustment, though, that some of these junglers are going to have to make. If these supports are just going to sit on you with a Terra level 1 or something like that, pick someone who can blow her up for doing it. I think that's what SweetPatato has done this time with this Erlong Shen. They're going to need a new strategy as Heeed forces out an ult for ult trade, forcing this Tyr to use the Lawbringer away.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a wet noodle lane for the most part. I don't imagine either one's going to see any kills. Maybe we see Tyr get something cheeky off, but it's all off the back of ganks right now. And looking at the jungles, I would expect to see SpreeeN really focusing in towards the mid lane, try and pressure out this Merlin. So much damage, as well as the fact that she has the long-range root. Merlin's blink's not going to be enough to get away.
No, it's going to put him into a tough situation. We'll see how active SpreeeN chooses to be on this Bastet. Do you feel like the ultimate's required? Because he's only level 4 as opposed to SweetPatato level 6. And then he might be waiting to get that ultimate online to kind of amplify everything else he does. I'll let you answer that later as SweetPatato looking for yet another gank. No ultimate for Heeed here this time either, so he is in a whole world of trouble. Still had the death from below, but another pin. SweetPatato feels like a whole different guy when he's not getting harassed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I said it, it's all off the back of the junglers to figure out who's going to win that lane, and SweetPatato seems like he's going to be the one. Shiaaaaa, level 3 here, alone versus 3. Seems like he might have been a little bit lost.
Yeah, ambitious would be too kind of a word, wouldn't it, to describe trying to make that defense happen. Good job tanking the tower. Snaddy gets the kill. Very few worlds where that works out positively for Shiaaaaa.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Terra at level 3, he's going to steal away that buff, right? No, absolutely not. And NanoBruv did a fantastic job of stopping the rotation in from the Houdinis to help her out.
Right.
He just positioned himself between the blue buff and the speed and stopped 2 on their path.
Effective use of that Merlin from NanoBruv, and now DANSSLAND in a great spot all the way across the board. There is no lane matchup where they're losing right now, and if you're Houdinis, I don't know if you can afford to do the same thing DANSSLAND did last game. When they got behind, DANSSLAND stepped on the gas pedal even more. Houdinis might need to kind of try and bunker down and get this Morgan online.
I mean, yeah, we saw it last game. They did step on the gas pedal, as you said, and it did not work. However, Houdinis has a better comp fighting in than DANSSLAND did last game, so if they do want to try and counterfight, it's a little bit better off, but I would expect to see them really try and get this Morgan online, get this Bastet towards level 7 or 8 before we see her really move in. And as we said earlier on the desk, 2 Bastets pouncing on you, that is a death sentence, especially with their ultimates.
It's pretty difficult to try and survive through that. I do want to make sure, again, we kind of put the qualifier on this, that these are long days these guys are playing out. Once you make it to semifinals, you're already qualified. You're basically playing for seeding. So it might just be that some of these guys would rather, you know, run it down and see what happens as opposed to a long, drawn-out 60-minute match in some of these cases.
Yeah, at this point, it's really, I want to win or I want to lose, but either way, I want it to be quick. You know
I
what
can't
I mean?
have another 60-minute slugfest. I just can't. It's been a long day. I don't have time for it. That's what some of these players are saying.
Absolutely.
It's worked out for them, at least so far. We'll see how it goes in game number 2. Much better for DANSSLAND here so far. Like we said, 5-1 and enjoying about a 2,000 gold lead. They're going to need to make sure, though, they don't rest on those laurels. That does not a victory make, as it looks like we got a brief pause coming out. We'll get everything sorted out with these players for now and then get right back into this. So I know that you love Bastet. Now that we have this time, I will give you an actual soapbox with which to talk about how much you love this new form of her.
All right, so listen to me, chat. I know you're listening right now. Bastet is
Listen to
so
me.
powerful. Her pounds at late game, level 20, I'm going to lowball her. Let's say that's 900 damage. That's a safe ability she's jumping in with. She just hit you with 900 damage. You want to swing back on her?
Pretty big, too.
Yeah, she's gone. She's not there anymore. She jumped back. And she's going to claw you as well. That's another 1,000 damage. Who's surviving that? Not your Merlin, certainly.
Could tell you're a Bastet fan. You're right. This is the Guardians of Bass, that ultimate now that makes her so powerful. Changed from before when it was the cat call, where she brought out multiple cats. Now functions as a stem on all these other abilities. Widens out the range of the pounce. If she lands in the center, that's where the max damage comes from, but is given that additional range in which to work with.
Big ult.
As now YarBadKid drops the Whirlwind of Rage and Steel in mid, trying to see if he can grab Shiaaaaa. Couldn't pull him far enough out of the tower, though, for it to work. And NanoBruv takes quite a bit of damage to the trouble. We saw the transformation from the Changeling, and Bayroneri gets the kill onto NanoBruv. Thank you for the breakdown. We got to see it in action.
Yeah, exactly what I said would happen. She jumped on you and you died.
It's
Fool.
too much damage for you to try and deal with. Snaddy does get caught out getting aggressive in mid lane, but great backup. SweetPatato goes right to the back line, puts in tons of damage, but not enough to 100 to 0 him. SpreeeN gets the credit for it, but Heeed sets it all up with the Pillar of Agony.
Yeah, they thought maybe the Bastet wouldn't have ult there. They got confused, but again, there are two of those Bastets dealing all that damage. But that really was off the back of a swift rotation from the Houdinis moving in. They took the fight on their own tower line, and DANSSLANDD just wasn't quite prepared for literally 4 members to be there instantly.
That's a huge fight, though, to kind of slow down some of this momentum. SweetPatato in particular, who was starting to run away with it in this early game. I like the initiation he had. He blinks past, gets 2 members with the taunt, and knocks them up. He just didn't have enough damage there by himself to finish it off, and they end up losing the fight on the backside of that one, though. So SweetPatato might need to slow it down a bit before he gives away all this loot.
Yeah, SweetPatato, certainly, he's only 600 gold up right now. However, Bastet, at that deficit, it's not where you want to be, especially with SweetPatato making all these huge rotations on his own. He's so tanky, and he is that engagement factor that Bastet doesn't have. But you know, that damage is so good. I can't slander my god like
you
that.
cannot do it. I'm seeing you. There's pain on your face as you try and find something negative to say about that Bastet. I do want to talk a bit, though, about this Morrigan build. Well, we'll talk about it after we take a look at this quick replay. This was that kill that SpreeeN got rotating in as well, too. So managed to get knocked up, but still turned around and finds the kill anyway. Pretty big play from him.
Yeah, that was... Hades catching him with that ultimate as well was really what solidified that death. He could have just continued to roll out, but this engagement on the blue buff, Hades finds one with the ultimate.
And that does keep Snaddy locked in. They probably would have much rather to get SweetPatato there, but he manages to worm his way out, so he'll be okay. You know, Morrigan, to talk about her build again, was doing a lot last time with the Bumba's Mask, topping it at that tier 2, and with the Messer's Mask, getting all that movement speed. Talk about that later is Gold Fury being started, being burned quite quickly by NanoBruv. In comes Shiaaaaa, though, to try and slow this all down. The Sun's there too. The Gold Fury's still there, and DANSSLANDD. It's DANSSLANDD the ones that are actually grabbing the objective. SpreeeN, though, comes in and finds the kill. They get 2. Bayroneri gets another. Nesfor finds himself a double kill, a 4-for-0 wipe for Houdinis. They may have lost the Gold Fury, but they're winning the fight. It's just a question of will they lose anyone else. They find the stun. They keep Snaddy out of there too. Delayed triple for Nesfor and the Deicide.
DANSSLANDD did get the gold for you, but normally when that happens, you wouldn't expect the other team to bring back that entire deficit. Houdini's tied up the gold completely, and if we look at the XP charts, I'd imagine we see a huge swing there as well. Yeah. It's a completely even game, and now they have a free path towards the Pyromancer. Morgan's showing herself in the middle lane as well as Bastet in the long lane, kind of confusing the DANSSLANDD side. They don't really know that they're going to be on the Pyro here. Xingshan's the only one able to rotate in, and he thinks better of it.
But what makes that fight go so well for Houdinis is that DANSSLANDD commit too much of the Gold Fury in that fight, or that they just weren't prepared for that level of counter-engage, or what did you see go so wrong for them?
So I saw DANSSLANDD, they had Gold Fury pulled, and they stopped damage on it completely, and all the tanks reset it. However, the hyper carry on the Merlin was still inside the Gold Fury, and he took 4 or 5 swings from it. Yeah. That's the majority of his health. It's so hard from there, and they just had to try and peel him out and move back where they were already out. Now Merlin falls, everyone else that went in to peel for him falls. Tyr comes in a little bit late as well, 5th man to die, and he just wasn't able to really make the decision to get out. He did find a 2-man Fearless, but who cares? No one was there to follow up.
Does not work out for them there. So that is brutal for DANSSLANDD. I mean, think about this if you're SweetPatato. You get farmed in game 1, basically because they won't leave you alone the early game. You finally have a good early game in game 2, and it gets snatched away from you at the Gold Fury. It's only 12 minutes. It's certainly not doom and gloom, but all that work just got erased.
It did, but you got to imagine he's feeling better about himself at least.
Heeed drops the ultimate channels that they do have one stuck in, the up-down, contractually obligated to come right back in with Snaddy, and it works out this time. NanoBruv shuts down the Houdinis quite nicely. Now they're on the full disengage, though. Houdinis have 4 members nearby. Morgan doesn't quite have Changeling, but it should be up soon. Still looking aggressive. Can't find the stun, can't find the leap either. Houdini's trying to force a fight here. I don't know if it's here.
They need to watch out for SweetPatato. He's doing a very good job at looking for the Morgan and keeping her out. But she stealths away now. I would imagine this fight fizzles from here.
Yeah.
Houdinis, they can reset. They can use this very slight lead, but I imagine they're just going to continue to farm because they have the superior late game in that Morgan if they just wait for it and get this build completely online. However, as I say that, they find SweetPatato in the jungle just a little bit out of position.
Yeah, and that's a Bane level backbreaker from me on that one, man. SweetPatato taking that death there, that hurts, right? I mean, he was 4-0-1 to start this game off, and since then has essentially been 0-3-1. It just has not been his game, and that death there, a real unfortunate one for him. Houdinis are not just right back into this, but now they've got SpreeeN tied and poised at the point in the game when he's going to be the strongest. This Morgan from Bayroneri feeling quite confident right now as well, too. I mean, this is starting to get a bit scary for DANSSLANDD.
I imagine we see from SpreeeN, he's going to go into maybe a Jotun's Wrath here or a Brawler's, but that penetration just compounded with the natural damage in her kit, she's going to be dealing so much. That's going to be a huge power spike either way that she goes on this build. Whereas you look over at the side of MySweetPatato, he's already got the SCS online, the Stone Cutting Sword, and the Crusher. Those are the biggest power spikes you're going to expect to see out of Erlang Shen. I imagine that he's going to go towards a little tankier build here, so as far as raw kill potential, this might be just about it for him.
You're right about the pen option. Brawler's beat stick here for SpreeeN. That's going to be great in all this healing from Snaddy and for SweetPatato. YarBadKid as well. You want to shut down as much of this as you can, and that Brawler's beat stick should do it. So look at these mage builds. They're starting to work on some pen, but not the percent pen we normally see in this third slot. It's the Spear of Desolation there for Bayroneri, and then on the other side, it's Divine Ruin for NanoBruv. So it's the response to some of this healing on both sides of the game.
I like that Divine Ruin pickup. You know, Hades is a healer. You don't really think about it, and that's not why he picked it up. It's that Terra ult burst heal that he's really worried about, and that will turn it, especially as he is an AoE mage. He should be able to find it on the majority of people. However, let's touch on that Spear of Desolation.
Oh, hold on. This could be trouble for Nesfor, especially with YarBadKid rotating in, but hey, if you hit 6 stuns like that, you're out of there.
Nutty stun into, let me hop on that horse, just giddy up out of here. But I would expect to see some additional penetration coming out of the Morgan here, or maybe even a Polynomicon. She's looking for that burst. Right now, with Bastet on the team, she's going to look to get that full ability rotation off, turn into Bastet, do it again, and just be a huge damage output.
Well, I was going to talk about this earlier, but there was so much fighting. I wonder if it's the Karen's coin next or Bayroneri. You want movement speed on Morgan so much. Heeed over the Waldo, drops the Pillar of Agony. The fight has already kicked off. YarBadKid does get off the Whirlwind of Rage and Steel, but just brings everyone to the fight even more. Here comes the Bastet, but that's Bayroneri turning into the Bastet, finds the first kill with the Changeling ult. SweetPatato answers back, though, by taking Get Morgan out of the equation. In the back line, Snaddy has 2 members knocked up, so Renjaru could come in and take care of Shiaaaaa as well. SpreeeN desperately trying to find somewhere to go, but Snaddy cuts off all escape 3 for 1 in favor of DANSSLANDD. Make that 4 as they run over Houdinis. Yeah,
that fight was immediately turned by YarBadKid. He had them diving into his tower, and they were backing out as they realized they were taking too much damage from it. And he said, where do you think you're going? Get back in there. And that's exactly what happened. Now they're moving into the Gold Fury, and the lead that we established early is starting to creep back up.
This is huge for DANSSLANDD, man, because it had been a rough few minutes from, you can just tell on the chart, look around the 11:55 mark. That's when the chart just dipped right back down towards even, and it plateaued there for about 5 minutes. But DANSSLANDD, off the back of that fight, shot the lead right back up to where they were. Obviously, the relative strength of that lead is less. We're later in the game, but this is still good for DANSSLANDD to try and build on this going forward.
As well as the fact that they just removed the objective from the map. They're not going to lose that gold lead anymore. But it's really on who plays around the Fire Giant now, or who plays around the towers. I would expect to see, maybe we see an engagement around the short side of the map as we move towards the Pyromancer. It's going to be a vision battle going forward.
Renjaru, to look at these Hunter builds again, going the attack speed pen option with Aussie into what's likely Executioner, but it's crit on the other side for Nesfor, and this is something I think we're going to keep seeing from these Hunters. There are a couple of viable build paths for them nowadays. You don't have to always build the same thing. Nesfor likes his option with the crit, meanwhile Renjaru wants to go for more sustained DPS.
I would prefer to see Renjaru to go towards this crit right here.
I would have seen them flipped, right? Yeah.
Purely because look at the comps. We've got
Yeah,
two
I agree.
tanky targets, 3 tanky targets on the side of DANSSLAND. However, this fight is beginning to start.
You're right. This Pyromancer battle is one we're going to have to take a look at. YarBadKid goes for another pull. Heeed with the disengage, though, the other way. Death from below, allowing for yet another escape from this Houdinis. So we thought the Pyromancer might happen, but it looks like they're done with that skirmish for now. Even though we do see Shiaaaaa still stepping up, looking for a little bit more from YarBadKid. These supports still not level 12, by the way. It's a hard life, the support role.
But yeah, to explain what you said earlier, how you'd expect the builds to flip. Well, hold on, let's see how this goes. No, we're fine. You would expect to see the crit on the side of Renjaru because there's so many squishy targets on Houdinis. That crit's going to be so well received. You know, 2 nice autos are going to land you a kill. But you would expect to see the sustained damage on the side of the
Nesfor.
Houdinis.
Yeah. I know, I'm right there with you. Pyromancer low, though, so we got to focus on this one for now. Renjaru gets the first kill, taking care of Shiaaaaa, but Heeed answers back. NanoBruv had nowhere to go. Merlin stuck inside that pull from the Houdinis, but Bayroneri on a mission finds Renjaru way in the back line. Someone's got to help Heeed, though. Never gets the heal off. That makes it 2 for 2 so
Huge
far,
damage.
tied up. But so many low health bars on the side of DANSSLAND, they might have to consider retreating. Try say that to Snaddy, though. This tier ready to go, looking for Bayroneri. Remember, that's the Morgan changeling into the Bastet, desperately trying to escape, but with this much chase, I don't know if he can make it. Snaddy blinks under the tower and cuts him down.
That's a nice return kill from
huge.
SpreeeN.
To at least get SweetPatato and find some kind of turn, but good job covering the option from YarBadKid. Knew he might try and pounce back to the initial pounce location and makes it 3 for 3 across the board. Snaddy and YarBadKid live, whereas at least Nesfor stays up to farm.
I like that decision from SpreeeN to find the return kill onto the enemy jungler, stop him from pulling ahead there. He could have used the pounce over the wall into the blue buff and survived himself, but instead he decided to stop that from really going out of control. If it became a 1-for-0 trade, they might have been able to look towards the Pyromancer or something like that, but instead he cuts their DPS and makes sure they can't go for the objective.
Well, Myth Knight got to defend this Bastet to me, man. I mean, look, 7,000 in player damage, not nearly as high up there as some of these other players are right now. Maybe Bastet's not all that after all, Myth. Struggling at 3 and 3 and 5.
I can hand you a sword, and you won't know how to, do the anime sheath, unsheath, cut everything in front of you. You got to be a master of the blade. I've been studying Bastet for years. I don't know how long SpreeeN's been doing it, but
I'm right there with you.
You can't blame the tool,
That's right. It's a poor craftsman who blames his tool. SpreeeN's certainly still relevant, though, at this point in the game. Only a little bit behind SweetPatato, having some fun there. Pyromancer went down as well while we were cracking a few jokes here on the cast. But this game has stayed relatively even, despite the good start for DANSSLAND. And you were saying earlier you thought this Morgan was enough to that if it's even late, you're favoring Houdinis.
I absolutely do, especially with all the good transformation targets she has. She could turn into anything they need. I mean, I could say that any game that Morgan's in it. It's really a nothing statement. But however, 2 Bastets pimp my team comp, am I right? That's so much damage. And Bastet has so many easy targets on the side of the enemy team, but let's hold that thought as this team fight begins. Xingshen finding a huge ult.
YarBadKid continues to find good whirlwinds of Rage and Steel, controls a couple members, but the rest of the team are on disengage. Look at Snaddy's positioning way off to the right of this fight. He might be able to catch them off a bit by surprise, but I think Houdinis are done with this. They are fully moving over towards the Fury. That'll be up in about 27 seconds or so, and they have prime positioning for this next fight. This could be a big deal for how the rest of this match goes if it's a big fight and multiple people die.
Establishing the map dominance around the objective, it's so much easier to defend your position than to push into it.
And that's why Houdini's got here first to try and control it. Over on the left side, though, it's already trouble for Heeed on the Houdinis. They went for him early on, but this Bastet has already procced the ultimate, so once a bunch. That's a good ultimate from Nesfor as well. Got decent damage onto everyone. Snaddy jumps in, immediately gets controlled. Heeed has dropped the Pillar of Agony as well, and still no lives have been claimed on this bloody battlefield, and yet DANSSLAND want a bit more. They jump in, but SpreeeN has the answer. NanoBruv falls first. Bastet starting to reign supreme here in the late game.
Yeah, I mean, who would have saw that coming, am I right? Oh, it was me. I saw that coming. Now we're going to look towards Houdinis, going towards the Gold Fury. The only one really there able to stop them is Tyr, and he's going to find a little bit of damage on a Houdinis, but I imagine we're just going to go ahead and pull the gold.
They have pulled the gold, and Heed's happy to keep Snaddy's attention on him instead of the objective. Renjaru has used the dive bomb, so there is no way out from here. Bayroneri survives by using the Aegis, and YarBadKid can't pose enough a threat in his own. He baits them back in, but only gets SpreeeN, and that's enough for SweetPatato to find the kill. It's tied up 15 to 15.
It absolutely is, but this fight can go either way.
And SweetPatato wants to try and get right back in if he can. They give Bayroneri enough space for him to make out of the fight, and now SweetPatato is stuck, so he has to try and out DPS it, but a little bit too tanky is he. Does not have the 3, does have the silence. It was almost enough, but can't get it off quite in time. Constant back and forth action will finally start up this Gold Fury.
It's here looking for a little bit more. Lawbringer going down towards the Hachiman. It's not going to be enough, but Shiaaaaa just shows her face, peeks around the corner, and says, "Hey guys, what are you up to?" You know, DANSSLAND meekly, nothing.
Yeah, they back off. No way they can do that Gold Fury any longer if anyone is around to contest. So we will maintain virtually a dead even game here all the way through 22 minutes, Mifflin. So this is going to be a good one. We had a feeling that it would be. And really, still, I feel like this is DANSSLAND kind of letting it slip away from them a couple of times. They had so much pressure throughout this early game, and that they kind of let slip throughout their fingers. Now they're going to have to keep scrapping and scrapping toughly to try and get back into this game.
The one redeeming factor on the side of DANSSLAND is if they find a pick, they burn objectives so absolutely quickly with the Houdinis, the Erlang Shen, and the Merlin. They're going to be able to drop just about anything. So if they can find even one opening, they should be able to find the objective as they move towards this Fire Giant.
Oh, and this is so smart. Houdinis are all moving over towards gold, but keep an eye on this Bastet. SpreeeN is the only one on this side of the map. He has to hear it or something
50%.
to check it out. Gold Fury does go down, so not only know most of the teams over there, they're willing to commit. This Bastet, the only one that can try and stop this one from happening. DANSSLAND secure it and get the kill on the SpreeeN. Galaxy Brain as they take care of Houdinis.
You know, if I'm on Houdinis and I'm doing Gold Fury, we've had 3 fights on top of it, all contested, and we walk over there and no one shows up to stop you, maybe you think to yourself, what are they doing on that side of the map? You know, your bat sense tingles or whatever, you got to move towards it. SpreeeN, you know, he sniffed it out, but he wasn't enough on his own. He had to look for the steal, but Jingshen, YarBadKid, did such a good job of forcing him to use his jump early, not able to use it to steal away the Fire Giant.
YarBadKid's had a great game so far on this Jingshen, man. He's looked awesome on it. It makes life hard for SpreeeN to make it in for the defense. Now DANSSLAND, who I was worried might be struggling, have the Fire Giant, a 5v4 power play as they move on the right side. Phoenix double blink right to the back line to make life hard. Nesfor has to drop the beads almost instantly. Earth and Fury from Shiaaaaa just try and keep him alive, but Heeed keeps 2 members busy in the back. They only get a little bit of Phoenix damage.
Watch out.
This is a solid defense from Houdinis. Heeed takes down Renjaru. YarBadKid's quite low as well, but is able to get all the way to the back line. They send DANSSLAND running.
You know, that's rough. The one time you get an opening, you're going to get picked out. You know, Spratty, he's having a little bit of a hard time here, but I don't imagine he falls unless Terra finds the huge root.
And that can lock him down for a little bit more damage. Heeed wants to keep the fight going with this Hades as he fears into a little bit more damage. I like the idea there, Nano. At least get off every bit of damage you can, but he does end up falling. Now Snaddy in trouble too. And when I finally switch over to gassing up my boys, DANSSLAND, this happens. They end up falling on the right-hand side.
Never bet against Bastet, all right? We saw SpreeeN there. He came in hot. Morgan turned into Bastet as well. There's so many Bastets on this comp. How could they lose?
How could they lose, right? I suppose if your team uses the Fire Giant, your 5v4 to take the Phoenix, maybe that would be a way. But instead, a really strong defense from Houdinis. And I think what's working so well for them is that Heeed was actually able to get a pretty good dive that time. He kept 2 members from following up off the blink initiation from DANSSLAND to the back line.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about Bastet, but Hades, we saw it in the P's and B's, 100% win rate.
That's good.
And he found 2 fear there. He found 2. That's 2 seconds that enemies are just unable to do anything. And it gave Houdinis time to wrap around them and really surround them. And that's how the initial pick happened. After that, it was just Bastet kind of running rampant. But I've gassed her enough as is.
Clearly a Bastet stand at this point. So a strong fight for Houdinis, despite DANSSLAND perhaps having an opportunity for that fight in right. That one slips through their fingers for now, but the Fire Giant's down. They still have it on 2 members. This lead still minuscule for Houdinis, 2K gold. Really nothing 26 minutes into the game that's particularly substantial. So DANSSLAND are absolutely still in this one. It's still very close.
Yeah, only 2,000, as you said. Fire Giant's not on the map anymore, so they have to just return to neutral here. I don't imagine either team's going to be knocking on the door of the tower. However, if that tier 1 on the left side of the map is very weak, we might see DANSSLAND trying to move up there. We have to imagine, though, SpreeeN on the side of the map is such a threat.
But talk to me about the dive that we saw happening over there in right. I mean, is that how you think the fight should go? That should Heeed be able to keep 2 members busy by himself, or did DANSSLAND not respond to it the appropriate way? I'll maybe get your analysis some other time as the fight's going to kick off right away. Snaddy already low. The sun's coming out too. That's from Renjaru just to try and stop the chase. But over in right, they found themselves a decent target in the form of Shiaaaaa. But Shiaaaaa wants to keep the action going. Heeed looking for a heal. Has YarBadKid stuck inside the pull, and Nesfor knocks him down easily from point-blank range. A fine fight from Houdinis as they take down 1.
Watch out for Morgan in the back. She's looping around.
SweetPatato is also way in the back, though, but he's surrounded by 3. And I don't think this late in the game that's what he's looking for. Nesfor just has to land the shots, and SweetPatato won't have a chance to survive. It's Heeed that gets it done. A 2 for 0 in favor of Houdinis. Now they can start to threaten these Phoenixes even without the Fire Giant.
Even without the Fire Giant, as you said, and that's the last Fire Giant on the side of DANSSLAND gone off of SweetPatato. That's a completely neutral buff now. No one has it. And now Houdinis, it looks like they're going to look to back here, spend up the gold that they just got off that fight, finish out their 6th items on the build, and look towards maybe looking towards the Fire Giant, I would say. It's going to spawn in just about 1 minute. They can get the vision control.
Yeah,
and as I said earlier, it's easier to defend a position than it is to attack it.
Looks like you're right. They're gonna decide, elect to wait here for that FD to respawn and then take that fight there. That should give enough time for DANSSLAND to have respawned MySweetPatato as well as YarBadKid, so they can certainly come out and defend. As we keep saying, the game's still relatively close at this point. It'll just be the Houdinis that are the ones that are entrenched at that point. But this could be big.
Out.
If they can get a pick onto Heeed in the middle lane. A sick wall stun from Shiaaaaa, though, shuts all that down. So like I was saying, did you expect that fight in right to go that way? Should Heeed get to buy that much space for his team?
Hades in of itself, I'm not a Hades apologist. I don't think he should be able to lock down that many on their own. However, if you look at the side of DANSSLAND, Houyi was unable to get towards Hades there, so the only real damage was Merlin, and the rest were just tanks. Hades isn't worried about tanks. He's so defensive on his own, and he has that heal, as well as the fact that the silence falls onto Merlin. He can't really get all the well-placed abilities that he needs. So Hades can do it, but he shouldn't have been able to.
Was able to effectively there, and that's what turns that fight so well for Houdinis, alongside good defense in the backline, keeping Nesfor alive despite some of the pressure that he was under. And so this next Fire Giant is on the map now. We said that we thought Houdinis might be entrenched. An extra Primal Fury would not hurt matters at all, as they once again put a lot of focus on this Fury on the left side, but they can burn it quite quickly this time and be back in position to defend. But DANSSLAND heard it. They're going to step up, look to counter ward, try and grab some positioning of their own.
They sure are. They find the counter ward, however. Terra looking for the engagement. She knows her team's coming in from the side. SpreeeN's already there.
DANSSLAND might have stepped up a bit too much. I understand what they were looking for, but they got to make sure they go on the full retreat now that all of Houdinis should be on this side of the map. So now we're into the Fire Giant dance, which you've had plenty of experience for in your time. What are you looking for primarily? Is it beads, cooldowns? What are you trying to get here that makes you feel like the fight's right to take?
At this point, if I'm on the side of DANSSLAND, they have to keep their eyes on the Morgan. Whether or not she can get into the backline and find that huge damage on a one target, it's going to be huge. But if I'm on the side of Houdinis, I'm always looking for that pick, as I said. But as well as that, it's the team fight actives you have to keep your eyes on.
Yeah.
It's the Shells, it's the Heavenlies. There's none on the side of DANSSLAND. They don't have to worry about it too much. It's Fire pull here.
Fire Giant's incredibly low already. Houdinis do manage to secure the objective, but DANSSLAND are too low on the backside of it. They might lose the fight, and the biggest objective on the map too. Renjaru incredibly low, as is SweetPatato and YarBadKid. They're on the full retreat, but she is right in the middle of everyone. So here comes the double Bastet cavalcade that's been happening all game. NanoBruv falls first. Snaddy low in the back. He's looking for a heal, but they're going to fight him from range. Nesfor gets the killing spree, and suddenly they've got 5 versus 3 and the FG.
They've got that all, and they're all relatively healthy. They don't need to back here. They can move immediately towards the Phoenix, and I expect that's what they'll do. They have the Terra heals. They have the Hades heals. Look, they group up for it there.
Yep, you're right.
It wasn't that much, but it is enough to really, compounded with Fire Giant, it's going to be enough to get them near full health and healthy moving in towards this Phoenix.
So they're going to group up at least 4 here. SpreeeN could rotate over to mid if he wanted, but looks like they want to try and just group up and grab this right side Phoenix while they can. They're heavily favored to get this Phoenix. In goes Heeed to the back line, forcing out the Houyi, and that has indeed opened up this objective for Houdini. Very cleanly done.
They're going to easily move towards the mid tower here. They won't spawn in time, DANSSLAND that is, to defend that tower. They won't even be able to slow it down, I imagine. They might be able to group up around this mid Phoenix and make it hard, but Houdinis can back now and spend all that gold they got off the one team fight, the Fire Giant objective drop, the Phoenix drop, and now this tier 2 tower. That's going to be a huge power spike. We might even see our first elixir of the match.
Certainly could be. It looks like, just as you advised, they'll take their tier 2 and leave. They've already done enough by getting that Phoenix on the right-hand side. They can now back and still have about 2 minutes, maybe a minute and a half to work with once they're done backing and move back out with which to work with on the Fire Giant buff. So that's excellent for them. But that Fire Giant fight, it looked like DANSSLAND really weren't able to do much about it. Houdinis DPS'd it so quickly.
DANSSLAND, they were grouped up around it, but we saw SpreeeN jump in with the ultimate activated and it just chunked it. 10% of the Fire Giant just eviscerated. But, you know, that's just Bastet.
That's just things that Bastet's able to do. DANSSLAND looking for a fight if they can try and catch Houdinis maybe staggered on their backs. But I don't know if this is the fight they want. If Renjaru gets blown up on the backline, Bayroneri, way too much damage from this Morgan. But NanoBruv, not to be outdone, gets 1-2. But a double for Nesfor and a double for Bayroneri. Suddenly it's a 4-for-1. Houdinis blow them away in that fight. That could very well be the whole set.
It very well could be. I don't imagine we don't see them just walk straight into the Titan.
They should.
They wouldn't even need to go for this mid-Phoenix. They might do it. They have plenty of time. It wouldn't really hurt them, but they can just walk past it. I said it earlier, they need to be worried about the Morgan just walking in behind them. She walked in, one shot your ADC and continue the damage elsewhere.
Yeah, you're not going to win a lot of fights that start off that way. Stun lands from Bayroneri. Snaddy already quite low. Snaddy dead. That's the game. D aside. And Houdinis with the 2-0 able to clean this one up here over DANSSLAND. Despite that impressive start, SweetPatato looked so much better in the early game on that Erlang Shin. This time, it just wasn't enough.
It wasn't. SweetPatato did enough to get them in the position to really do a lot. They got towards their first objective in that Gold Fury, but they lost it and the fight out. Or they didn't lose the Gold Fury. They got the Gold Fury, but that 5-man wipe, that's too much.
Yeah, that was a brutal fight for them in that fight, and it really did start to slow down some of that pressure that they had, right? You were hoping this Erlang Shin was going to be enough to kind of accelerate you throughout this early game, but as we said, they were never going to be able to compete with this Morgan in the late game. It was too many sources of damage for them, and I think what we don't talk about enough is the base mage form of Morgan, right? That is a ton of damage in of itself before the transformation even happens.
It is so much damage in that she can one-shot a target on her own, but as well as the fact it's so safe, she can throw out the Dark Omen from a range, and now if Bastet jumps on her or anyone else, that's additional damage there as well.
And I think this build path that we saw from Bayroneri is going to be pretty common for Morgans this year. Yeah, this is more damage than you can deal with, by the way.
That's a Bastet, by the way.
And you're going to see this Doom Orb. I think you're going to see the Karen's Coin, all this extra movement speed to make up for losing that Messenger's Mask from like Season 6 and all the extra movement speed that was so valuable there. This is probably what we're going to see from these Morgans, and you've got to be mindful. That's what Heimdallr is probably going to be good at too, is kind of revealing where she's at and making it easier to keep tabs on her.
Heimdallr is the good counter matchup, but Karen's Coin, as you said, is such an interesting pickup for Morgan. She doesn't have to buy that dedicated movement speed item that kind of stilts her damage as well. Right. Now she can find it elsewhere within the build, getting the additional penetration and magical power. This might be the year of the Morgan.
It certainly could be, man. She's so powerful, but in most cases, I imagine she is going to be banned for this exact reason, right? I mean, she's able to change the way that you have to think about these games. There were some times early where it felt like the reason that DANSSLAND were losing the fights was because they thought Bastet's abilities were down, but they miscounted the second one or the original one or what have you, and just kind of losing track of it.
I love seeing two Bastets pounce simultaneously. It's like a synchronized swimming, if you would. It's beautiful.
It is. It's gorgeous. It's Olympic level, so to speak, right? Coordination here between these two teams. But Houdinis are the ones that grabbed that 2-0 victory. But as you see enough from DANSSLAND to where you'd be excited to see them later on, I think they showed us they're certainly strong. It just didn't pan out here.
We saw shades of what could be a top-tier team at the very beginning of that game. It's whether or not they can confirm that and not really let it slip through their hands in the future.
Yeah, I think if you're Dan, you can look back at that set and go, listen, we let our jungler get saddled in the first game, and we had one bad fight in the second game. We can clean that kind of stuff up going forward. We'll be seeing them, obviously, in the group stages later on. That's going to do it here for the semifinals. We got the finals coming up here in just a little bit. A quick break, and we'll be right back.